Hello everyone. Today with me here is Colonel Rama, and we will be chit-chatting about a new topic, that is OBOR. So Colonel Rama, can you please explain about OBOR?
Now, Karan, I'm very glad that you asked me about this OBR today. You know that our armed forces are up high in the Himalayas, more than nearly a division of them, three divisions are there facing the Chinese. And the next few months are going to be difficult. So everybody is focused on that particular event, and it's a very tricky time, a difficult time for everybody. But then we must understand this is not the major event. This is an outcome of OBOR, and this is only the, you can say, a first chapter of the story. I'm afraid much more is going to come.
So Colonel Rama, what is the talk of CPEC, OBOR, BRI, and how is this connected to China, and why do you think India should worry about it?
OBOR, that is One Belt, One Road. CPEC, China Pakistan Economic Corridor. BRI, Belt Road Initiative. These are terms which have come into parlance in the last few years. Basically, what happened was, or rather, it is a part of the Chinese grand strategy to extend their trade relations, followed by their flag, and influence countries in Asia up to Europe, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. This is a step towards their dominating these areas through trade, through commerce, and through maritime power. In fact, the present president of Communist China, Xi Jinping, he had mentioned this first in 2012 and then again in 2013, and he talked of a Chinese dream, and it was nebulous initially. Over a period of year or two, by 2015, it had taken on this concept was slowly taking up a concrete form. Belt and Road Initiative or Maritime Silk Road. And these are words we have been coming across, hearing increasingly in the last 4 or 5 years. These pertain specifically to Communist China's project initiatives around the globe. They have conceived a series of massive projects as a part of their grand national strategy. These projects have geostrategic implications, geoeconomic implications, and they would be affecting all the countries in South Asia, Southeast Asia, all across Central Asia to Europe. Wherever these projects are going to be carried out, all these countries are going to be affected. Now, Communist China has been trying to sell these projects as something very noble, purely for developmental purposes, and will be carried out in a spirit of cooperation and mutual benefits. And for them, they say it is the fructification of their dreams, a Chinese dream. These projects connected with BRI and OBOR are actually means and methods by which their dreams, the dreams of the Chinese people, will be realized for better life, for more prosperity.
So, Colonel Rama, you have mentioned something about Chinese dream. What exactly is this Chinese dream, and how is it connected with OBOR?
China is a major economic power today,
Right.
and it is a rising military power, and is very keen to take on USA and become number one, or at least dominate Asia to start with. USA is still the strongest country in the world today, militarily and economically. Okay? Now, of course, Chinese ascendancy in the economic sphere did not happen overnight. They worked hard for it. 6 decades back, India and China, our GDPs were more or less the same. Subsequently, China appears to have leapfrogged over us. See, post Mao had the leap forward program in which millions of people had died. Chinese have learned from that. And since then, they have found a beautiful strategic plan and went on a mission to industrialize the country. They have formulated and charted out their course of actions, and successive generations of the heads of state have ensured that whatever plans were formulated have been followed strictly. Of course, they had an advantage that it's a totalitarian state, unlike India, and they could ensure that any opposition to these plans could be handled in a manner that the plan itself was not affected. And they have managed to go far forward compared to our own economic progress. It is a matter of concern for us. You can see the graph and you will know how much is the difference in our progress and their progress. And maybe we can learn something from them. See, this Chinese dream was first mentioned by Xi Jinping, who is the president of China. He was the general secretary of the Chinese Communist Party. He has talked about this Chinese dream in 2012. And subsequently, this term has really taken off. Of course, the common people of China, they would be looking forward to prosperity, good life, the same way as Aam Aadmi and Aurat anywhere else in the world. In fact, the Shanghai newspaper had run a specific set of articles on this. I'll just read out some of these Chinese dreams of the ordinary people. See, youngsters dream of a scholarship to study in America. Bring in a new generation of games completely different from what we have played before. And a lady says, I want to save enough money to start a food catering business along with my husband. Jan Zillen, 81 years old, a retired factory worker, he says, I hope to live long enough to see my great-grandson. I mean, these are the dreams of an ordinary Chinese citizen. The ordinary people the same as we would have in our own country or anybody else in the world. And this Chinese dream expresses their wish for fulfillment of what they are looking forward to. Unfortunately, however, the way Communist Party of China looks at the Chinese dream is vastly different from what the people of China want. The Chinese civilization goes back to ancient times. No dispute about that. They have their concept of Zhongguo, which means Middle Kingdom, and Tianjia, which means heaven. For them, China is the center of civilized world, and all countries around are supposed to be subservient to the Chinese. And it is the natural right to dominate the world. Is the Chinese heaven, and they are in the middle of it, and they have a right to dominate the world. Now, the Chinese Communist Party today is aware that China is economically very powerful and its military might is being built up on a massive scale, and they know that they will be able to utilize their economic clout and the military prowess so as to dominate. Start with South Asia, Southeast Asia, and maybe the rest of the world over a period of time. So the Chinese communist concept of Chinese dream has reflected itself in the OBOR, that is One Belt, One Road. And unfortunately, it has given a different set of meanings to what can be achieved by OBOR. Not just the prosperity of its citizens at home, but domination of countries around it.
So, Colonel Rama, how is OBOR connected with the Chinese dream?
See, when Xi went to Kazakhstan in 2013, I think he mentioned this, he was specifically talking about Belt and Road Initiative. He talked about Belt and Road Initiative. He says from the coastal regions of China, we will have a road which will pass through the Central Asia and go on, touch Russia and go on to Eastern Europe and right up to UK. That will be the road. And it will be a great highway on which a lot of traffic will go on, and trade and commerce will become much easier. This will be following the old Silken route, which used to be there from Europe to China. This will be a revival of that. In September 73, I think he went down to Indonesia. There, Indonesia it's a large island, consists of a series of islands. There he talked of maritime Silk Road, of sea lanes emanating from South China Sea, going down south, Southeast Asia, Malacca Straits, Indian Ocean, up African coast, Suez Canal, into the Mediterranean. Now that is their concept of a maritime Silk Road. So these are the two major segments. One, the land route to the north and the sea route to the south. Of course, this is not the single route. They have also thought of many branches from the main routes. The CPEC, which comes from Kashgar in Xinjiang through Punjab, Balochistan, goes up to Gaudar Port. This particular route is called the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and they are spending about $50 billion for this. In 2015, they brought out a white paper, and in 2017, they had a massive conference in which about 69 countries were in, 100 countries were invited, 69 countries took part, and there were 29 heads of states who were present in this conference, where this set of projects was put forward. It also had the heads of IMF, World Bank, WTO present in that conference. And there in that conference, China had promised to ensure funding of billions of dollars. He said, on the BRI, we'll be spending $15.5 billion. Heads of several international organizations from UN, IMF, WTO were all there. And there were announcements of $14.5 billion US for the Silk Road Fund, a loan corpus of 36 billion US dollars to China Development Fund, 18.8 billion dollars to China Exim Bank, and 8.7 billion for humanitarian projects. Obviously, the Chinese were very keen to sell this concept of BRI to the international audience in the best way possible, and a rosy picture was painted. But I must add, India did not take part in this particular conference, which was attended by heads of 29 nations and over 69 countries. India did not take part.
Okay, and if this Faryum was an important discussion, then why India didn't attend this?
No doubt that the Chinese had presented a beautiful picture of what this OBOR was, the BRI was. But on deeper scrutiny, and when you link it up with the Chinese behavior in Southeast Asia and with our own borders, we realize that there's a lot of lacuna in this particular concept of theirs. They said it is an international project and it is meant to enhance cooperation, betterment of lives for people of all countries, an improvement in economic conditions of every country which is involved, and all those beautiful things. But there were certain issues which India felt, क्या बोलते हैं, दाल में काला है. There is something, to start with, this was purely a Chinese initiated project. They never took into consideration, they never consulted other countries when they put forward. And they definitely did not consult us. So this OBOR was considered in a unilateral fashion by the Communist China for the sole purpose of advancing Chinese interests. They had no consultation with anybody, leave alone India. They did not take into account the geopolitical alignments or antagonism between countries who would be the recipient of these projects. They definitely did not take into account the sovereignty or the territorial integrity of countries and their legitimate concerns. The choice of projects was by the Chinese, and consent of the people of the countries was not there. The project will be there, but how will it affect the people? Will it be acceptable to the people of those countries? So this was an issue. And the funding which method they were proposing, we realized, would have cast unsustainable burden on countries where these projects will be executed. We definitely did not wish to get involved in projects with China which do not take concern of our territorial integrity or our security concerns.
So, Colonel Ramakrishna, can you specify anything that adverse to Indian interests?
China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, it's one of their flagship projects. It emanates from Kashgar in Xinjiang, passes through Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, via Punjab. The road goes down to Baluchistan up to Godar. Now, this road is passing through the illegally occupied territory.
Okay.
So, they have no right to lay this road along with Pakistan, ignoring Indian concerns. And the way this road has been laid is definitely a security threat for us. It's definitely a security threat for us. And on Indian land, they have not told us what they are doing. It is absolutely not acceptable. This BRI is not a transparent geo-economic concept. It is basically enmeshed in Chinese concept of their security and their overall strategy. We always heard of flag following the trade. You know, invariably, this has been happening since hundreds of years. Countries start trading, then to protect their commercial interests, they start sending fleets, they start sending armies to protect their markets. Chinese, I'm afraid, are planning the same. And they have already proved it by their actions in more than one area. Chinese had published a defense white paper in 2015, which has given us a chance to read between the lines into what actually they are saying what they are planning to do. This white paper lays great emphasis on the maritime Silk Route, and rightly so. We have no objections to China being concerned about the maritime lanes because 90% of their imports are coming from Middle East, petroleum products. Their exports are going all over the world, including Africa and Europe. So this Indian Ocean and the Malacca Straits and South China Sea are areas of great importance to them. Their security is also very great importance. They could have handled this in a very nice and friendly manner. How? If they were really keen to have cooperation with countries, they could have told India, which is the dominant country in the Indian Ocean. They could have said, you take care of our maritime interests in the Indian Ocean, we'll take care of your interests in the China Sea and to Japan. And I think Indian Navy could have taken care of their interests. Of course, we have had problems of pirates coming from Somalia. It took the effort of nearly 30 to 40 countries coming together to sort out this problem. So there are issues for maritime transportation, but India could definitely have done this nicely, peacefully, beautifully. But their approach has been slightly different. They have unilaterally gone and expanded their navy, and they are going to expand it still further. They plan to have 10 aircraft carriers, just for example, by 2030 to be manufactured by them. 2 aircraft carriers every 2 years. That is the plan. And nearly 100 submarines. Now, submarines are not meant for cooperative work. They are offensive weapons. And we know that their submarines have come to Bay of Bengal, to Arabian Sea. What is the need for Chinese submarines to come to Bay of Bengal or Arabian Sea? It's purely one side is India, the other side is the Southeast Asian countries. There's no need for them to come.
So, Colonel Rama, in your answer, you have mentioned something about white paper. So, can you just elaborate what exactly is this white paper you are referring to?
Yeah, the defense white paper which was brought out in 2015. It's a little different from the white papers on defense, which were brought out a decade earlier.
Okay.
They have put in a completely new set of parameters and the way they will be going about it. And OBOR is an item of major issue in that particular concept and how they are going to actually work it out on the ground. The innocent sounding lines have, when actually operated upon on the ground, they have raised concerns for countries in Southeast Asia as well as for India. I'll read out one or two of these extracts from these. Okay. Now, the paper speaks of safeguarding the security of China's overseas interests and support for national and economic development. Very simple, straightforward, very normally thing. I'm safeguarding my economic development. But how is China doing this? They are doing this by projection of their naval power, not only in the South China Sea, but they plan to do it in the Indian Ocean also. And they'll be virtually dominating all the countries in Southeast Asia and in the Indian Ocean, all the way up the coastline of Africa into the Suez Canal and the Mediterranean. Another extract from this DWP, that is the Defense White Paper. International turmoil and security of overseas interests concerning energy resources and strategic LCOs, SLOCs, as well as institutions, assets, and personnel abroad has become an imminent issue. Now, here they are talking about strategic interests concerning energy, institutions, and personnel also. Okay. When you realize or when you take into account that they have set up bases in Hambantota, in Djibouti, in Malacca, Myanmar, then you realize why is he talking about all this. They have very specifically taken actions to dominate the neighbors. Is bent upon creating an exclusive buffer in the South China Sea. It has fought with Vietnam fairly tough naval battle in 1974 over the Spratly Islands. It has made illegal claims based on the 7-dash line, which was impinging on the sea coast of both Philippines and Vietnam. Philippines took up this matter under UNCLOS, and the ruling was that Chinese claims of 7-dash lines were illegal. But China is not willing to accept it. China has been repeatedly using its naval fleet to ram Vietnamese fishing vessels. Chinese vessels have destroyed a great deal of coral reef in South China Sea. They have built up radar stations and even airstrips on Spratly Islands. Spratly Islands are disputed, but they have gone and occupied it and done this. So, their aggressive behavior in the South China Sea, coupled with their aggressive behavior towards India on our northern borders, and their close interaction with the Pakistani military, definitely is a matter of concern for India. So we have to be very careful about this OBOR, and the maritime sea lanes. In addition, what they have done, they are establishing ports, building up harbors. Fine, so far so good. But their aim is to ensure that their warships, their submarines can be docked in those and be refueled. And where are they? They are in Hambantota. Hambantota is the southernmost point of Sri Lanka in Myanmar. They are opening a port even in Bangladesh. Then you have Godar, you have Djibouti. So all over this area, they have managed to encircle India in the sea. In the north, we are sharing a 3,400 odd kilometers of border with them. And Pakistan has got another about 2,000 kilometers of border. So we are surrounded literally by Chinese army or the navy. That's the plan. You can call it a noose around India's neck. It's literally a noose around the India's neck, which they expect to tighten over a period of time. Efforts have started to assume that Pakistan is different and Chinese forces are different would be absolutely incorrect. They are working in tandem and they will continue to work in tandem. They've got excellent cooperation. And you'll realize in the last 2 decades, China has been presenting them literally with armaments, with fighter planes. Recently, they are given minesweepers and destroyers. They are planning to give them submarines also. So this connection between Chinese Army, Navy, Air Force and Pakistan Army, Air Force is very strong. And we should consider them as one set and not two different set of aggressors. And it's only a matter of time before their ships, their aircraft carriers come into the Indian Ocean.
What is China's approach towards terrorism?
Communist China has been following double, triple standards where terrorism is concerned. This specter of jihadist terrorism, China knows and is concerned that it is spreading across the Xinjiang province, where Uyghur Muslims predominate. And the way they are handling Uyghurs is there for everybody to see. They also talk of three evils of terrorism, separatism, and religious extremism. But when they talk of it, they talk of it only so far as China is concerned. They have no objections to talking with Taliban. They have gone and repeatedly stopped the United Nations from naming Pakistani terrorist organizations and their leaders, whether JEM or LET. They have repeatedly done this. They have also ensured that Pakistan is not named as a terrorist state in the FATF. Again and again they have blocked it. Right now they are the chairman in FATF, and I don't think there's any chance of Pakistan, in spite of its promoting terrorism, ever getting the name of a terrorist country. And don't forget, they have been for the last 6 decades supporting anti-Indian activities in Mizoram, Nagaland, and of course the Naxalites. So there is no reason for us to trust that China will ever take any active measures to counter terrorists who are flooding into India, nor will they stop Pakistan from sending terrorists into India. So their outlook and approach toward terrorism is completely biased. And we should or we cannot expect any help from them in tackling terrorists emanating from Pakistan.
So, Colonel Rama, after listening to your answer, it clearly indicates that India is lacking strategical planning. Whereas, on the other hand, China has a lot of a good strategical planning done at their end. So, don't you think India should focus on making good strategies rather, putting their efforts and focus towards the external relations with other countries? Because developing those relations in a day's time is not possible. So, I think the focus should be more towards the strategies. What's your point about this on this?
You're absolutely right. And it's unfortunate part that India does not have a grand national strategy. India does not have a grand national strategy. We have certain directives for the military. The army has its own, navy has its own, air force has its own. And you will find this sort of mission plans, they're all in silos. Army has its own mission and it has worked out what is to be done. Navy has its own. The Petroleum Ministry has its own. The Home Ministry has its own. Now, there is no overall arching which will connect all this and have a national strategy. We have military doctrines, yeah, but not a national strategy. Now, we must understand there's a difference between tactics and strategy. When you talk of wars, strategy will ensure where the wars are to be fought and how they are to be fought so that the ultimate aim is obtained. Ultimate aim is achieved. Our lack of strategy has led to, and this compartmentalization of missions and mission plans of individual services and ministries has led us to the present imbroglio where our defense forces are not properly armed. We have defense forces, but do we have defense power? Power is different from force. Unless you are able to project your military power, you cannot dominate any particular area or situation. We are unable to do that today.
India is a democratic country and they don't have a communist government. Whereas China has a communist government. Still, India is facing a lot of issues, related to, I would say, unity and economy. Whereas, if I look at China, in terms of economy, is at the top, and in terms of, I would say, military, it's again at the top. So, is it like that gives a question mark that is China trying to hide something from us? Because most of the times, on media or anywhere else, you could see that always good things are happening in China. Or maybe the communist government is manipulating the media and they're hiding the negatives and they're just only portraying the positives, to the outside world. So, what's your call about that?
China is a communist country and hardly any information relevant or original ever trickles out of communist countries.
Yes.
They have a blanket ban on any information, what you call exchange. Communist Party is supreme in China. It's so in all the countries, in communist countries. And interestingly, they have, there is a Communist Party, okay, Chinese Communist Party, and whoever is the General Secretary of the Communist Party will be able to control whatever is happening in the military and also their governance organizations. So they have a Politburo of 7 members in which one person is chosen, who is now President Xi. He has control over the military, he has control over the governance, he has control over the party.
Yes.
And he is the final word.
Right.
No, once this Politburo takes a decision, it is unquestioned. It has to be accepted
Right.
and run through the entire country. There is no chance or choice ever given to X, Y, or Z. Recently, one of their vice premiers was elected. How was the election done? They had about 2,000 odd delegates, I think. So election was done. There was only one candidate, and you had a choice. You can vote for him or not vote for him. And only 2 did not vote for him. Everybody else has voted for him. So this is the way the Chinese communists, or any communist country, they work. Unlike India, which is a democracy. In fact, our leaders spend most of the time, and the opposition also, running around the country trying to, on election campaigns, wasting so much of time, energy and all that.
Money.
That is not there in communist China.
Right.
They have one system and the people have accepted it. You know, when Mao Zedong went in for that great leap forward, it is understood that 3 million people had died. बाहर कुछ नहीं पता आपको, एक चीख भी नहीं सुनाई दिया. All those professors and doctors and students were sent to the villages to work on the fields. Nobody complained. It took China about 15-20 years to recover from that shock. But the fact is that they work in a system where lives don't seem to matter. If you remember our Prime Minister, when this COVID business came, he said we should not lose even one life to COVID. Their approach is different. They have very little respect for life or democracy or freedom of speech. They have all that in their constitution. Oh, free speech and ability to talk back. But in actual fact, nothing.
Is there?
It's a different world altogether. Very difficult for us to understand. But the Chinese people have accepted it so far.
You are saying that Chinese people have accepted
it so far.
But how do you get to know about this? Because anyways, what I feel is that the communist government always tried to manipulate the news which is being delivered to the world. And I think that news is also quite much manipulated to make sure that the Chinese are always shown on the positive side, that everything is absolutely working fine. Their the machinery, is working, is quite well oiled. But
Yes.
if I just have my own perspective here, is that they are just trying to hide the negatives. Maybe there is a chaos going on where the people are actually not with the communist government, but they're actually against them protesting. And there are a hell lot of, very valuable facts which are being hidden.
You heard of Tiananmen Square? I think it was before your time. The Chinese people did try to express their views and independence, and it was very harshly put down. Tiananmen Square is very famous. And see what has happened in Hong Kong.
Right.
Just recently,
Exactly.
Chinese deal with their own people like that. It is quite different from the way democratic countries deal. But we have a freedom of speech and the moment any action takes place anywhere, it is immediately spread all over the country. You can say things which you want to do, or say and do things which you wish to do, even against the government. There is no question of saying anything against the government. Question just doesn't let up. Communist Party is supreme, and whatever they say has to be done.
That's
That's
the final
it.
word.
That's the final word. And as I said, Communist Chinese have accepted it. Here, there's definitely some smoke, and there's no smoke without fire. That smoke is what? The fact that they're going for, why are they going for OBOR? See, their GDP is 5 times of Indian GDP. But how much of it has really trickled down to the bottom? 75 to 80% of their population is in the coastal area. And even there's a lot of difference between the high earners and the lower earners. Living styles are different. Definitely. Now the Chinese, their increase in the GDP, which used to be about 10% and above for many years, has started plateauing. They have come to a stage which is called a middle income block. Most of the developing countries come to the middle income block. Now they have to get out of it. For that, their economic processes have to change. Their economic method of working has to change. And how is that? See, being a communist country, they said no private enterprise. That was how it was. After the Great Leap Forward, they realized that they have to follow this Leninist policy of industrialization. And they have done that. From 63, 65 onwards, for 4 decades, 6 decades now, 3 generations of communist governments have come. What they said was, we will get technology from outside. We will get technology from outside. We'll have industries in China. We'll allow private industries from outside to come and set up shop, which is unimaginable for a communist country. They did that. They have done that. They are doing that, and you can see the result. Because unless there is industry, there will be no employment. Unless there is industry, and which is export oriented, that's how they are getting their foreign exchange from. But this particular set of industries that they have in China is low cost, high volume. Low cost, high volume. So they make t-shirts and shoes and socks and banians and all that. So that can only take you up to a certain limit.
Right.
If you want further progress, then you have to go in for high cost.
Yes.
High cost items, maybe volume will be less. So this OBOR project is a way to discard their old machinery, which is making low value items. They'll sell it across to those countries which at the moment are not fully industrialized. You say Kazakhstan. It's not industrialized. They'll send something to Ukraine. They'll send something to Kyrgyzstan. And they will start themselves concentrating on high value items. They'll start concentrating on technology. Innovation, technology, research, development. That is the plan. So OBOR, so far as they are concerned, is required. Every country should do this. But the way they are going about it is the issue. The way they are going about it in trying to dominate other countries, that is the problem. They are trying to dominate India and ensure that you are submissive, subservient. This is exactly what the colonial rulers used to do.
If I look at the present circumstances, for example, if I look at Israel, Israel was a very small country. The area was very small, and this country is surrounded by enemies. Still, Israel managed to, you know, improve the strength of their military. They managed to cover a lot of area. Now the size of that country has increased, and still they are able to survive. Being surrounded by a lot of enemies. So, don't you think India should also be they should be independent, self-dependent, in the terms that even if India is surrounded by enemies, still they should have that kind of an aggression, that attitude that they can survive and they can deal with any sort of problem that comes up. So, what's your point on this?
Yes, culture, and so Israel has to do whatever it is doing now simply to survive. It's a very small country, I think smaller than Tamil Nadu. If they are not, and mind you, Israelis have seen what happened in Germany, how nearly 6 million of them were simply burnt alive. They don't want that to happen again, the Holocaust to happen again. And for the last nearly 2000 years, they've been roaming all around Europe. They didn't have a country of their own. And they found themselves one small little piece of land which they originally were settled in. The Muslims came much later. Originally they were Jews. Even Christians were not there. Originally only Jews were there. And we had Christians, then you had Muslims. Okay. They said this is our land. So they've gone there. And it's a matter of survival for them. And they have drawn a red line. They said nobody will cross this red line. Once you cross this red line, you are my enemy. India has not drawn a red line. We have allowed people to come in, sit in our territory. We have been sitting on our laurels, or our culture has been, kya se Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That's a beautiful statement. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam means everybody is. Verse Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam has a sentence earlier to that and a later to that nobody quotes. Good and mature people say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and those who are not good and mature do not say this. ये कोई बोलता नहीं. We are saying Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, everybody is equal, everybody is my brother. But is the other person saying that? When the other person is not saying that, you are saying this has no contextual meaning. It's like goats telling the tiger, I am a vegetarian. It makes no difference. Makes no difference. See, here in political sense we have something called realism, liberalism and all that. The realism is a fact. They talk of chaos. The real politic. How is this world? Every country is interested in its own security. And where a state is concerned, morality and politics are completely different. A state, I'm not talking, a state, a government, morality and security, you cannot have it with philosophy. That has to be completely different. It's a matter of survival. States will use all possible methods and means. A person who is the head of the state cannot afford to say, मैं ये करूँगा, ये नहीं करूँगा. He has to do whatever is required for the protection of the territorial integrity and the welfare of his people. That should be, that is the Raj Dharma. A king cannot say, मैं vegetarian हूँ, I will not fight with anybody, my army will not fight. That's what India has been saying and doing. So we have always been the losers because you have been adopting certain cultures and policies which are not in consonance with the world outside.
Right.
World outside is what it is. If you want to exist, you have to be militarily powerful. You have to exercise your military options. You have to be proactive. There is no shortcut for this. There is just no shortcut for this. So, our leaders, unfortunately, have not, they might have read history, they might have understood certain things, but they're not practicing it. It is not being practiced. We have to practice what we learn and what we have to see what is happening around the world. If you want to survive, you have to be powerful. There is no shortcut. And we are not powerful, neither economically nor militarily. So, so we are facing the problems today because of that. That's it. Okay.
Thank you so much, Colonel Ramakrishna, for giving your time. Now, to sum up this discussion, I would like to say that India and the communist China became independent countries in the 1940s, free from the colonial domination. Economically, both were equally weak till the 70s. China's economic policies since the 70s has boosted its economy. Today, China is ahead of India economically and militarily. An ambitious China always wants to dominate Asia and become a superpower. India is a developing power. China has been bullying all its neighbors since last 10 years. China feels India is a major hindrance in its quest for domination. It is conniving with Pakistan to hinder India's progress. It has formulated a strategy to achieve its aim. Using the OBOR as the tool to bring corn tires into debt traps. Developing an occupation of ports in the Indian Ocean to surround the entire India and dominate the Indian Ocean. India now should be very well prepared militarily to fight on two fronts. Also boosts its military strength, especially the Indian Navy to secure Indian Ocean. India also must develop a national strategic policy to ensure cohesive action and advanced preparedness.